Providence, Rhode Island, Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. The clock on the courthouse wall reads exactly 9:23 in the morning when three armored Mercedes-Maybach sedans with darkened windows roll to a stop in the restricted zone outside the municipal building. None of the vehicles display American plates. None respect the clearly marked no parking signs, and none of the 7 men who emerge from those vehicles appear remotely concerned about any of it. The city of Providence woke up that morning the way it wakes up every morning. Bus drivers beginning their routes through working-class neighborhoods, college students crossing the bridge with coffee cups clutched against the October chill, retirees reading newspapers on park benches while pigeons gather at their feet. This is a city of ordinary people, a city where a dollar still means something, a city where men and women work overtime, pay their taxes on time, and believe, perhaps naively, that the law applies equally to everyone. Inside the courthouse, the usual Tuesday morning crowd fills the gallery benches. A nurse still wearing her hospital scrubs holds a crumpled parking ticket in her trembling hands. She worked a double shift last night, 16 hours on her feet in the emergency room. She came home to find a $75 fine tucked under her windshield wiper because her meter had expired while she was saving a child's life. Next to her sits an elderly man in a faded veteran's cap. Korea, 1952. He drove his truck for 47 years until his eyes got too weak. Now he's here because a traffic camera caught him rolling through a yellow light that turned red a half-second too soon. Behind them, a young mother bounces a fussy toddler on her knee. She can't afford the ticket. She can barely afford the gas it took to drive here. These are the people who fill Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom every single day. These are the people he has served for over 40 years. People who play by the rules. People who show up. People who say, "Yes, Your Honor," and "Thank you, Your Honor," and mean every word of it. The double doors swing open, and everything changes. Prince Qasim Al Farhan enters the Providence Municipal Courthouse like a man walking into a hotel lobby he might consider purchasing. He is 31 years old, fourth in line to the throne of a Gulf nation whose sovereign wealth fund holds more assets than the combined GDP of a dozen European countries. His suit was hand-stitched in Milan by tailors who flew to his palace to take measurements. His watch, a Patek Philippe Sky Moon Tourbillon, costs more than every vehicle in the courthouse parking lot combined. He has never waited in a line. He has never been told no. He has never once in his 31 years on this earth encountered a problem that could not be solved with a phone call, a wire transfer, or a quiet word to the right person. Behind him walk 2 diplomatic attachés from his nation's embassy in Washington. Behind them, a senior partner from a London law firm that charges $4,000 per hour and has never lost a case involving a client of this stature. And behind him, a man in a charcoal suit who carries no briefcase and says nothing. His job title, if he has one, would be fixer. His actual job is to make problems disappear. He has never encountered a problem he could not make disappear. The gallery goes quiet, not silent, quiet. The particular kind of quiet that descends when ordinary people sense they are in the presence of something extraordinary. The nurse with the parking ticket looks up from her crumpled paper. The veteran straightens in his seat. The young mother pulls her toddler closer to her chest. Prince Qasim does not acknowledge any of them. He does not see them. To him, they are furniture, background noise. The kind of people who exist to serve, to clean, to drive, to disappear when no longer needed. Clerk Patricia Harmon clears her throat. She has worked in this courthouse for 23 years. She has announced thousands of cases. Her voice has never wavered. But something about the energy in this room makes her pause for just a moment before she speaks. Case number 2024, Emma V. 11847. The State of Rhode Island versus Qasim Al Farhan. Charges include reckless driving resulting in property damage, leaving the scene of an accident and failure to report an incident to law enforcement. Total damages claimed exceed $47,000. The defendant has entered a plea of not guilty. Prince Qasim does not look up from his phone. He is typing a message. His thumbs move across the screen with the casual indifference of a man answering emails during a meeting he considers beneath him. Obviously not guilty, he says. His accent carries the polish of British boarding schools layered over something older, something that sounds like centuries of unchallenged authority. Can we move this along? I have a lunch reservation. Judge Frank Caprio looks up slowly. He removes his reading glasses, sets them down on the bench. The soft click of metal against wood echoes through the silent room like a gunshot. For 43 years, Frank Caprio has sat on this bench. He has seen wealth. He has seen poverty. He has seen arrogance and humility, rage and remorse, lies so bold they took his breath away, and truths so painful they made him weep in his chambers afterward. He has learned to read people the way a surgeon reads an X-ray, and right now, in this moment, he is reading Prince Qasim Al Farhan. "Sir," Judge Caprio says. His voice is calm, almost gentle. The voice of a man who has learned that true authority never needs to raise its volume. "You are in a court of law. I am going to ask you to put away your phone." Prince Qasim continues typing. "One moment," he says. The bailiff shifts his weight. The court reporter's fingers hover frozen above her keys. The nurse with the parking ticket holds her breath. Somewhere in the gallery, someone's chair creaks. 5 seconds pass. 7. 10. Judge Caprio does not repeat himself. He simply waits. And in that waiting, in that absolute stillness, the entire room begins to understand that something unprecedented is about to happen. Prince Qasim finishes his message, sends it, slides his phone into his jacket pocket with the leisurely grace of a man who has never once been rushed. Only then does he look up. Only then does he actually see Judge Frank Caprio for the first time. And what he sees does not impress him. He sees an old man in a black robe. He sees a small courtroom in a small city in a small state. He sees a system that, in his experience, has always bent for men like him, has always found a way, has always understood that some people exist above the machinery of ordinary justice. He has no idea what he's looking at. He has no idea who he is dealing with. "Your Honor," the London attorney steps forward, his voice smooth as silk and twice as expensive. "My client wishes to express his respect for this court while noting that there may be certain diplomatic considerations that—" Judge Caprio raises one hand. The attorney stops mid-sentence. "I will hear from the defendant," Judge Caprio says. Not his attorneys, not his attachés, the defendant himself. He fixes his gaze on Prince Qasim. "Sir, do you understand the charges against you?" Prince Qasim smiled. It is not a pleasant smile. It is the smile of a man who has just been asked if he understands that water is wet. "I understand that I am being inconvenienced," he says. "I understand that I was asked to appear in this place when a simple phone call should have resolved this matter weeks ago. I understand that someone in your government failed to communicate to someone in your legal system that I am not subject to these proceedings." He pauses, adjusts his cufflink, looks directly into Judge Caprio's eyes. "I answer to no American court," he says. "Your laws mean nothing to me." The words land like stones dropped into still water. Ripples of shock spread through the gallery. The nurse gasps. The veteran's hands tighten into fists on his knees. The young mother covers her toddler's ears as if protecting him from something profane. Judge Caprio does not move, does not blink, does not breathe. For 11 eternal seconds, he simply looks at Prince Qasim Al Farhan, and in those 11 seconds, everyone in that courtroom understands that they are witnessing something that will be talked about for years, something that will be studied, something that will be remembered. When Judge Caprio finally speaks, his voice is so quiet that people in the back row lean forward to hear. "I see," he says. He picks up his glasses, puts them back on, opens the case file in front of him. "Well then, let us begin." The case file in front of Judge Caprio contains 47 pages of documentation, police reports, witness statements, photographs, insurance claims, medical records. Each page tells a piece of a story that began 6 weeks earlier on a quiet Sunday evening in the Federal Hill neighborhood of Providence. September 1st, 2024, Labor Day weekend? The kind of warm, late summer evening when families gather on front porches and children chase fireflies in the fading light. Maria Esperanza Santos, 63 years old, was closing her restaurant for the night, La Cocina de Maria, a tiny place on Atwells Avenue that she and her late husband opened 31 years ago with their entire life savings and a prayer. For 3 decades, she has served rice and beans and pernil to the working families of Providence. She knows her customers by name. She knows their children. She knows their troubles. That night, Maria was carrying 2 bags of garbage to the dumpster in the alley behind her restaurant when a white Lamborghini Aventador came screaming down the narrow street at approximately 93 miles per hour. The speed limit on that street is 25. The car clipped a parked Honda Civic, sending it spinning into a fire hydrant. The hydrant erupted. The Lamborghini fishtailed, jumped the curb, and slammed into the brick wall of Maria's restaurant. The impact shattered her front window. Glass exploded inward. Tables overturned. The photograph of her late husband, the one she has kept above the cash register since he died of cancer in 2019, fell from the wall and shattered on the floor. Maria herself was knocked down by the force of the impact. She hit her head on the concrete. She lost consciousness for approximately 40 seconds. When she woke up, she was lying in 3 inches of water from the broken hydrant, bleeding from a gash above her left eye, surrounded by the ruins of everything she had spent her life building. The white Lamborghini reversed. Its driver did not stop, did not check on Maria, did not call for help. The car simply backed away from the wall, turned, and disappeared into the night. 3 witnesses saw the accident. 2 of them captured partial video on their phones. One of them got a clear image of the license plate, a diplomatic plate, registered to the embassy of a Gulf nation whose name would later be redacted from public court records. It took Providence police 4 days to identify the driver. It took another 2 weeks for the State Department to become involved. And it took 6 weeks of what court documents would later describe as extensive diplomatic negotiation before Prince Qasim Al Farhan agreed to appear in person at the Providence Municipal Court. During those 6 weeks, Maria Esperanza Santos worked 18-hour days trying to save her restaurant. She borrowed money from her sister. She borrowed money from her church. She took out a second mortgage on the small house where she has lived for 40 years. The repairs to her building alone cost $31,000. The medical bills for her head injury and subsequent concussion treatment added another $8,000. The health inspector required her to replace her entire kitchen ventilation system because the impact had cracked a gas line. Another $12,000. She has not slept more than 4 hours a night since the accident. She has lost 11 pounds. Her hands shake when she tries to carry plates. She is sitting in the 3rd row of the gallery right now. Judge Caprio does not know this yet. He will. Officer Daniel Reyes of the Providence Police Department takes the witness stand. He is 34 years old, 8 years on the force. He was the first responder to the scene on the night of September 1st. His body camera footage has been entered into evidence as Exhibit 4A. The footage begins with the sound of his cruiser's siren. Then the siren cuts off. Then there is the sound of Officer Reyes breathing as he steps out of his vehicle into chaos. Water everywhere. Glass everywhere. A woman lying on the ground, not moving, a crowd gathering, someone screaming in Spanish for help, for an ambulance, for God. Judge Caprio watches the footage on the courtroom monitor. The gallery watches. Prince Qasim does not watch. He is examining his fingernails. "Officer Reyes," Judge Caprio says, pausing the footage at the 2:47 mark, "when you arrived on scene, was the vehicle that caused this damage still present?" "No, Your Honor. The vehicle had fled the scene." "And the victim? Mrs. Santos?" "She was unconscious when I arrived, bleeding from the head. I administered first aid until paramedics arrived approximately 4 minutes later." "Did anyone at the scene provide information about the vehicle?" "Yes, Your Honor. 3 witnesses provided descriptions. One provided a photograph of the license plate." Judge Caprio nods. He turns to look at Prince Qasim, who has begun checking his phone again under the table, apparently believing no one can see. "The diplomatic plate," Judge Caprio says. "It was registered to your nation's embassy. Is that correct?" The London attorney stands. "Your Honor, we must object to this line of questioning. The Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations clearly establishes that—" "I asked the defendant," Judge Caprio says. His voice has not changed in volume, but something in its temperature has dropped several degrees. Not his attorney. Prince Qasim sighs. "The plate was registered to embassy vehicles, yes. I occasionally borrow cars from the motor pool. This is hardly unusual. So you admit you were driving the vehicle that night?" "I admit nothing. I am simply explaining how diplomatic plates work. Perhaps you are unfamiliar with such matters in—" He gestures vaguely at the courtroom, the building, the city, the entire concept of Rhode Island, this jurisdiction. In the gallery, Maria Esperanza Santos closes her eyes. Her hands are folded in her lap. Her lips are moving silently. She is praying. Judge Caprio notices her for the first time. He sees the bandage still visible at her hairline. He sees the exhaustion carved into her face. He sees her hands trembling, even though they are clasped tightly together. He looks back down at the file, and then he finds something that makes him stop. A medical report. Not Maria's, someone else's. Someone who was in the Lamborghini that night. Someone whose blood test results show a blood alcohol content of 0.19, more than twice the legal limit. Someone whose name has been redacted with black marker, but not well enough. Not well enough to hide it from a man who has spent 43 years learning to read what powerful people try to hide. Judge Caprio looks up at Prince Qasim Al Farhan. The prince is still smiling. He will not be smiling much longer. The courtroom air has changed. Everyone can feel it. That invisible pressure that builds before a storm breaks. The clerk has stopped shuffling papers. The bailiff has moved 3 steps closer to the defendant's podium. Even the fluorescent lights seem to hum with a different frequency. Judge Caprio holds up a single sheet of paper. The medical report. The one with the inadequate redaction. "I have here," he says, "a blood test conducted at Rhode Island Hospital on September 1st, 2024, at 11:47 p.m., approximately 3 hours after the accident on Atwells Avenue. The test was performed on a male patient, age 31, who presented with minor abrasions to the face and hands consistent with airbag deployment. The patient's blood alcohol content was measured at 0.19. In the state of Rhode Island, the legal limit is 0.8. He pauses, lets the numbers hang in the air. The patient refused to provide identification. He was accompanied by 2 men who presented diplomatic credentials and demanded his immediate release. The hospital, following protocol, complied, but not before a nurse, doing her job, following the law, completed the blood test and filed the results in the medical record system. The London attorney is on his feet. "Your Honor, this is completely inadmissible. Medical records obtained without proper authorization cannot be—" "These records were subpoenaed by the state of Rhode Island," Judge Caprio says, "legally, properly, through the correct channels." He sets the paper down. I find it interesting that your client's legal team did not anticipate this. For the first time, something flickers across Prince Qasim's face. Not fear, not yet, but awareness. The awareness of a man who has just realized that the game he thought he was playing might have different rules than he expected. This proves nothing, Prince Qasim says. His voice is still steady, but something underneath it has shifted. Anyone could have been driving that vehicle. Anyone could have been in that hospital. Judge Caprio nods slowly. That's true, he says. Anyone could have been. Except, he opens another folder, pulls out a photograph. An 8x10 glossy printed on court evidence paper. This photograph was taken by a traffic camera at the intersection of Atwells Avenue and Dean Street at 8:23 p.m. on the night in question. It shows a white Lamborghini Aventador running a red light at high speed. The driver's face is partially visible through the windshield. He holds up a second photograph. This photograph is from your official state biography, Your Highness. It was taken last year at the United Nations General Assembly. It shows your face quite clearly. A third photograph. And this photograph was taken by one of the witnesses on the night of the accident. It shows the driver of the Lamborghini stepping out of the vehicle for approximately 4 seconds before getting back in and fleeing the scene. He lays all 3 photographs on the bench in front of him, side by side, like cards in a game whose outcome is no longer in doubt. I am not an expert in facial recognition, Judge Caprio says, but I do have eyes. And these eyes have been looking at faces in this courtroom for 43 years. I know what I see. Prince Qasim stands up. The motion is so sudden that the bailiff's hand moves toward his belt. The attorney reaches out to restrain his client, but the prince shakes him off. This is absurd, Prince Qasim says. His voice has risen. The Polish is cracking. You are a municipal court judge in a city most people have never heard of. Do you have any idea who I am? Do you have any idea what I could do to your career, your reputation, your insignificant little life? Judge Caprio does not stand, does not raise his voice, does not react at all. He simply waits until the echo of Prince Qasim's words fades into silence. Then he speaks. I know exactly who you are, he says. You are a defendant in my courtroom. You are accused of driving drunk, destroying property, injuring a 63-year-old woman, and fleeing the scene like a coward. You are standing in a building paid for by the taxes of working people, people like Mrs. Santos, who is sitting right there in the 3rd row, who has spent her entire life following the rules you seem to believe don't apply to you. He removes his glasses, folds them carefully, sets them down, and I know exactly who I am. I am a judge. Not your judge. I am the judge. The law is not a suggestion. It is not a negotiation. It is not something you can buy or threaten or make disappear with a phone call to the State Department. The law is the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. And in this courtroom, on this day, I am the law. The silence that follows is so complete that people will later swear they could hear their own heartbeats. Prince Qasim's face has gone pale. His hands, which have never trembled in his life, are trembling now. He looks to his attorney. His attorney is staring at the floor. He looks to his attachés. They are looking anywhere but at him. For the first time in 31 years, Prince Qasim Al Farhan is completely alone. Your Honor, he says. His voice has changed. The arrogance is still there, but underneath it now is something else. Something that sounds almost like fear. I believe there may have been some misunderstanding. Perhaps we could discuss this matter privately. Perhaps arrangements could be made. Judge Caprio shakes his head slowly. There will be no private discussions, he says. There will be no arrangements. There will only be testimony, evidence, and judgment. That is how this works. That is how it has always worked. That is how it will always work. He turns to the gallery. Mrs. Santos, he says, Would you please approach the witness stand? Maria Esperanza Santos rises from her seat. She moves slowly, carefully, like a woman carrying something precious and fragile. The entire courtroom watches as she makes her way to the front of the room. She is wearing her Sunday dress, the one she saves for church and funerals and the anniversaries of her husband's death. She wanted to look respectable. She wanted to look like someone whose voice deserves to be heard. Prince Qasim watches her approach, and for one brief moment, something flickers in his eyes. Something human. Something that might, in another man, be the beginning of shame. But it passes, and his face hardens again. He has no idea what is about to happen. None of them do. Maria Esperanza Santos places her hand on the Bible. She swears to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Her voice is quiet but steady. The voice of a woman who has survived things that would break most people. The voice of a woman who has nothing left to lose. Miss Santos, Judge Caprio says gently, would you please tell the court what happened on the night of September 1st? Maria nods. She takes a breath, and then she begins to speak. She tells them about the restaurant, about her husband Carlos, who died 5 years ago, and whose dream it had been to open a place where families could gather, where children could taste the food of their ancestors, where the old recipes would not be forgotten. She tells them about the photograph above the cash register, the one of Carlos on their wedding day, the one she has touched every morning for 5 years as a way of saying good morning to a man who is no longer there. She tells them about the night of the accident, about the sound, a sound she says she will never forget, a sound like the end of the world, about waking up in the water, in the glass, in the ruins of everything she had built, about the car backing away, about calling out for help and hearing nothing but the hiss of the broken hydrant and her own ragged breathing. She tells them about the 6 weeks since, about the insurance company that refused to pay because the driver could not be identified, about the loans from her sister, her church, her bank, about the night she has sat alone in her empty restaurant, surrounded by plywood and plastic sheeting, wondering if she will lose everything. And then she says something that makes the entire courtroom stop breathing. I don't want money, she says. I don't want revenge. I just want to understand. She turns, looks directly at Prince Qasim Al Farhan. Why didn't you stop? She asks. Her voice cracks on the last word. I was lying there. I was bleeding. I could have died. Why didn't you stop? Prince Qasim does not answer. He cannot answer. Because there is no answer. There is no explanation that would make sense to a woman like Maria Santos. There is no justification that would hold up under the weight of her simple, devastating question. The silence stretches. 10 seconds. 20. 30. And then Judge Caprio does something unexpected. He reaches into his folder and pulls out one final document. It is a letter, handwritten, 3 pages long. The paper is yellowed and soft, as if it has been folded and unfolded many times, as if it has been read and reread by someone who treasured every word. This letter was found in the glove compartment of the Lamborghini when it was located at the embassy motor pool 3 days after the accident, Judge Caprio says. It was filed as evidence by the investigating officers. I don't believe anyone has read it until now. He begins to read. My dearest son, I write this to you on the eve of your departure for America, knowing that you go as a representative of our family, our nation, our honor. Your grandfather built this kingdom from sand and dreams. Your father expanded it through wisdom and patience. Now you carry our name into the world. Remember always that true power is not found in wealth or title or the fear of lesser men. True power is found in mercy, in justice, in the ability to see the humanity in every person you encounter, no matter how different they may seem from you. You will meet many people who bow to you because of your position. This means nothing. The measure of a man is not how he treats those who serve him, but how he treats those who cannot serve him at all. Be worthy of the name you carry. Be worthy of the blood in your veins. Be worthy of the kingdom that waits for you, your loving mother. Judge Caprio sets the letter down. The courtroom is silent. Maria Santos is weeping quietly, her shoulders shaking. The London attorney has his head in his hands. The diplomatic attachés are staring at the floor. And Prince Qasim Al Farhan, fourth in line to a throne, heir to billions, a man who has never heard the word no in his entire privileged life, is standing at the defendant's podium with tears streaming down his face. Your mother wrote this letter 7 years ago, Judge Caprio says. She passed away 3 years later. You have carried it with you ever since. Every car you drive, every country you visit, you have never been without it. He pauses, removes his glasses. When he speaks again, his voice is soft, almost kind. I think some part of you knows that you have not been worthy of her words. I think some part of you has known it for a long time. And I think that part of you has been waiting for someone, anyone, to finally hold you accountable. Prince Qasim's voice is barely a whisper. What do you want from me? Judge Caprio looks at him, looks at Maria Santos, looks at the gallery full of ordinary people who came here today expecting nothing more than parking tickets and red light violations. I want you to choose, he says, who you are going to be. The man your mother prayed for, or the man you have become. The room holds its breath, and Prince Qasim Al Farhan makes his choice. Prince Qasim Al Farhan steps out from behind the defendant's podium. His attorney reaches for his arm, tries to stop him, but the prince shakes him off. He walks, slowly, deliberately, across the courtroom floor until he is standing directly in front of Maria Esperanza Santos. The bailiff moves forward. Judge Caprio raises a hand. Wait. For a long moment, Prince Qasim simply stands there, looking at this woman. This 63-year-old grandmother who has worked every day of her adult life. This woman whose only crime was being in the wrong place when his recklessness came screaming down her street. Then he does something that no one in that courtroom, not the clerk, not the attorney, not the diplomatic attachés, not Judge Caprio himself, expected. He kneels. Not a bow, not a nod. He kneels. The way his ancestors once knelt in the desert to pray. The way a man kneels when he has finally been broken by something stronger than his pride. I am sorry, he says. The words are thick in his throat. English is his third language, but sorrow needs no translation. I am sorry for what I did to you. I am sorry for what I destroyed. I am sorry for the man I have been. Maria Santos looks down at him. Her tears have stopped. Her hands have stopped trembling. In her face is something that transcends anger or grief or even forgiveness. It is recognition. The recognition of one human being finally seeing another. She reaches out, places her hand on his head. The gesture of a mother. The gesture of a priest. The gesture of a woman who has suffered enough to know that suffering is not diminished by hatred. I forgive you, she says. 3 words. The 3 most powerful words in any language. Prince Qasim bows his head and weeps. Judge Caprio allows the moment to exist. He does not rush it. He does not interrupt it. Some things are more important than procedure. Some things are more important than protocol. Then when the moment has passed, he speaks. Will the defendant please rise and approach the bench? Prince Qasim stands, returns to his podium. His face is wet, but his eyes are clear. Something has changed in him. Everyone can see it. Something fundamental has shifted. Prince Qasim Al Farhan, Judge Caprio says, you have been charged with reckless driving, driving under the influence, destruction of property, causing bodily harm, leaving the scene of an accident, and failure to report. Based on the evidence presented, I find you guilty on all counts. He pauses. The weight of what comes next hangs in the air. However, justice is not merely about punishment. Justice is about restoration. Justice is about ensuring that what was broken can be made whole. Therefore, I am ordering the following. First, you will pay full restitution to Mrs. Santos in the amount of $51,000, covering all property damage, medical expenses, and lost income during the period of repair. This payment will be made within 7 days. Second, you will perform 200 hours of community service at the Rhode Island Food Bank, serving the working families of this city whose lives you clearly know nothing about. Third, you will surrender your international driving privileges in the United States for a period of 5 years. If you wish to operate a vehicle in this country during that time, you will apply for a standard Rhode Island driver's license and pass the same tests that every other resident must pass. Fourth, and most importantly, you will establish a fund in your mother's name, the Queen Mother's Road Safety Foundation, with an initial endowment of $5 million dedicated to protecting pedestrians and holding reckless drivers accountable regardless of their wealth or status. This fund will operate in perpetuity long after you and I are both gone from this earth. He sets down his papers. These are my conditions. If you accept them fully and comply completely, I will suspend the jail sentence that this crime would otherwise require. If you fail to comply, if you flee, if you attempt to use your diplomatic status to evade these obligations, I will issue a warrant that will follow you to every country in the civilized world. The choice is yours. Prince Qasim does not hesitate. I accept, he says, all of it. Everything. Judge Caprio nods. He makes a note in the file. Then he looks up one final time. Your mother was right, he says. True power is not found in wealth or title. True power is found in mercy, in justice, in the ability to see the humanity in every person you encounter. He picks up his gavel. Today, in this courtroom, you have taken the first step toward being worthy of her words. Do not waste this chance. Do not forget what you have learned. The law gave you this opportunity. What you do with it will determine the kind of man you become. He brings the gavel down. Court is adjourned. The sound echoes through the room, and then something extraordinary happens. The nurse with the parking ticket stands up. Then the veteran in the Korea cap. Then the young mother with her toddler. One by one, the ordinary people of Providence, the working people, the struggling people, the people who came here today expecting nothing more than small claims and minor fines, rise to their feet. They are not applauding. They are not cheering. They are simply standing, bearing witness, honoring a moment when justice actually meant something. Prince Qasim Al Farhan turns to face them. He bows. A deep, formal bow. The kind of bow his ancestors once offered to those they respected. And Maria Esperanza Santos, 63 years old, 31 years in business, survivor of loss and heartbreak in a runaway Lamborghini, reaches out and takes his hand. Sometimes, she says, the worst thing that happens to us becomes the best thing that happens to someone else. 6 months later, La Cocina de Maria reopened with a new front window, a new kitchen, and a small plaque by the door. Rebuilt with help from unexpected places. The Queen Mother's Road Safety Foundation has since funded pedestrian safety improvements in 37 cities across the United States. Prince Qasim Al Farhan completed his community service hours. He did not send a representative. He showed up himself. He served meals to families who had never heard of his country and would not recognize his face. He learned their names. He learned their stories. And Judge Frank Caprio continues to sit on the bench in Providence Municipal Court, doing what he has always done: listening, questioning, searching for the humanity in every person who stands before him, Because that is what justice looks like. Not the justice of power over the powerless, not the justice of wealth protecting wealth, but the justice of ordinary people in an ordinary courtroom, in an ordinary city, refusing to believe that any human being is above the law. If this story moved you, if you believe that true justice sees no crown, no title, no privilege, then share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the law is not just a system, it is a promise. A promise that in the eyes of justice, we are all equal, even princes, especially princes.